Good morning. Hello, I need energy. Come on. Good morning. How are you all doing today? Good? Amazing. My name is Tolü McKay. I'm a singer. I'm actually from Ireland. I am performing a song called You Are Enough. And fun fact, I actually used to work in Google. And this song inspired the transition into me becoming a full-time musician. So I am super excited to be performing this song with my fantastic band that is here today. So give me all the energy that you can today. This song is called You Are Enough because I believe I am, and so are every single one of you. Okay, let's do it.
I get it, I understand. It's hard to get up in the morning time. This 9 to 5, you know, it's your life. Feeding someone's dreams, which is on the side. I get it, I understand. Weight on your shoulder got you on your knees. Air's getting thinner, but it's hard to breathe. It's no surprise that you lasted this long, all because you are enough. You are enough. Love yourself more. You are enough. You are enough. You are enough. Love yourself more. You are enough. Come on. Okay. Listen. You're a pretty flower in the concrete jungle. You hold so much power, but you choose to humble every effort, every lesson that you question helps the blessings. No need for stressing. We ain't all perfect. It's gonna take some practice. Maybe you should notice that it's you in focus. We ain't all perfect. It's gonna take some practice. Maybe you should notice that it's you in focus. You are enough. You are enough. Love yourself more. You are enough. You are enough. You are enough. Love yourself more. Yeah. Woo. Okay, if you believe you're enough, I need you to clap for me. Come on, clap. Come on, clap. Hey, you are enough. 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 You're a pretty flower in the concrete jungle. You hold so much power, but you choose to humble every effort, every lesson that you question helps the blessings. No need for stressing. You are enough. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Tolü McKay, everybody. How beautiful was that? That is a great way to start off with some music from Tolü McKay. She's going to be back later this morning with another song, and I'm looking forward to that. Wasn't that fun? That was we all are enough. Tolü, you're enough, and everything else. So there we go. All right, and I love the story. How great is the connection to Google and going into music and Ireland? So now we're ready to start. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Google's campus in Sunnyvale. It's a beautiful day here. Life is good. My name is Diane Dwyer. I'm born and raised here in the Bay Area, but My roots go all the way back to Ireland. I know everybody claims it, but it's true, it's true. All of my grandparents came from counties Cork, Waterford, and Dublin. And a little shout out to Bantry in particular, one of my favorite towns in Ireland. It is my pleasure to be here with you today for the presentation of IDA's Special Recognition Award. So, as you probably know, this event was originally planned back in 2021, and then this thing happened called COVID, and sadly it prevented us from making this happen until today. So it is great to be together now. It's nice to see people, it's nice to be in person and to celebrate and give recognition to Google and the work that company has done in Ireland for so many years, right? Okay, so we have a packed agenda for the next hour. You want to hear from other people rather than me. First, we're going to get an update on the latest economic conditions in Ireland. After that, we're going to hear about some social innovation and importance of Google's partnerships in Ireland. And then we'll move on to the formal presentation of the award to Google CEO Sundar Pichai, at which point we'll also welcome on IDA Chairman Frank Ryan, Google's Jessica McCarthy, and Lorraine Toohill to the stage. So, to kick it off, are we ready? We're ready? I think we're ready. I'd like to welcome to the stage Tánaiste Varadkar, as well as CEO of IDA Ireland, Martin Shanahan. Gentlemen, come on up.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Martin Shanahan, I'm the CEO of IDA Ireland. We're absolutely delighted that you could all join us this morning for this very special event. I'm going to introduce my guest in a moment, but first I just want to acknowledge a few people who are with us this morning. So we have the Consul General, Robert O'Driscoll. We have the Secretary General of the Tánaiste's Department, Orla Quinn. The Chair of IDA Ireland is with us, Frank Ryan. The CEO of Enterprise Ireland, my colleague Leo Clancy, is with us. We have Sundar Pichai, we have Lorraine Toohill, and we have a load of leadership colleagues from Google, as well as IDA colleagues in the room. And we're also joined by many of the leadership of IDA client companies here in the Valley, and we really appreciate you all taking the time to be with us this morning. I'm also joined here beside me by Tánaiste, the Deputy Prime Minister of Ireland, who is also the Minister for Enterprise, Trade and Employment. Also, of course, the former Prime Minister of Ireland, and will be again towards the end of the year, and somebody who has served in several ministerial posts across government. So very well placed to give us an update as to what is going on in Ireland economically and societally. So Tánaiste, maybe just to kick off, it has been a very challenging time for countries, for companies, for citizens. We've been through a very difficult 2 years. Can you talk to us about how Ireland coped with the pandemic, how we've come through it, and where we're at now?
Yeah, well, I suppose it's almost impossible to speak about COVID without acknowledging the enormous loss of human life. Over 10,000 people in Ireland, north and south, died with COVID. 1 million here in the States, maybe 5 million around the world. And it has disrupted people's lives and had an impact on mental health and on people's jobs and businesses. And I think we should never forget that. But in the round, Ireland has got through the pandemic quite well. Our excess mortality rate compared to other countries is one of the lowest in the world. And a lot of that has been down to the fact that we had quite strict public health restrictions at the start, which people cooperated with, and then a world-beating vaccination program, which led to over 96% of the population being vaccinated. So really, as of February, we don't have any restrictions at all, and life is pretty much resembling normal, which is great to see. The parts of the economy were hit, particularly those areas that had to close, like hospitality and aviation and tourism, and we're really trying to help them out. But our economy in the round didn't shrink. We actually had economic growth throughout the pandemic, and a large part of that was down to the tech companies and the pharma companies and the food companies and the medical devices companies that held up our economy when the rest of it was struggling. And the revenues that came in from those companies, including Google, allowed us to protect people's incomes and allowed us to throw a lifeline to businesses that would otherwise have closed. And that's something we're very, very grateful for, and has put us in a better position than maybe other countries thought they would be in. We'll probably balance the books this year, by the way, and have record levels of employment within the next few quarters. So in the round, have come through it in good shape, but obviously would have preferred if it never happened in the first place.
And Tánaiste, if that all in itself wasn't enough, we've come out of the pandemic straight into a war in Europe, Russia's invasion of Ukraine, which the Irish government has roundly condemned. First and foremost, obviously, a humanitarian crisis. Can you talk to us about, I suppose, the impacts you see of that, both economically and societally in Europe and indeed in Ireland?
Yeah, it's hard to believe it's happening. I met some of the Ukrainian refugees in Dublin Airport recently when they arrived, and they said to me that they were it was like living in history, or was like watching a movie. But of course, it's not. It's for real. This is happening in our time. Something we haven't seen in Europe since the 1940s. A pure war of aggression, a dictatorship trying to overthrow a democracy, and it has actually united Europe. And I think it's brought America and Europe closer together, which is important. And the main thing we're trying to do is to support Ukraine in any way we can, with military aid, political aid, humanitarian aid, through the European Union, and receiving refugees as well. Because we're an EU country, we've decided we'll set no limit on the number of Ukrainians who can come to live in Ireland, and we'll provide them with the right to work and access education, healthcare straight away, as though they were EU citizens. But that's a big deal, because it probably means our population will increase by 2 or 3% in the course of a few months, and that's going to create challenges. But they're ones that we're willing to manage. And just in my meeting with Sundar earlier, we just touched on some of the things that Google is doing, particularly around misinformation and disinformation, which I think is hugely important, because there's an information war going on as well. And I think to a certain extent Ukraine is winning that war, because modern media and modern social media doesn't allow people to cover up what's happening. We can see straight away with videos taken by people's phones what's happening in some of these places in Ukraine, and that's been really powerful.
And there will be obviously economic consequences as well for Europe, and we see, I suppose, issues around energy and increased commodity prices, supply chain issues. How do you see that unfolding? And yet Europe has responded very significantly with sanctions.
Yeah, well, like a lot of that was happening anyway. As a consequence of the pandemic and monetary policy, inflation was already rising in Europe and America before the invasion, and energy prices too. But Ukraine just makes all of that worse. And we don't have any issues with energy supply because we don't get any oil or coal or gas from Russia in Ireland, but it has driven up the prices, and that's obviously very unwelcome. And not just of fuel and energy, but also fertilizer, and that will affect agriculture and food production as well. I think the main thing we need to do, though, is to really embrace and accelerate our climate transition, because we should not be dependent on oil and gas from Russia or from other unstable parts of the world or other undemocratic parts of the world. And it really now falls on us to rapidly accelerate our transition to renewables, to green hydrogen, to smart grids, to all of those things that I think can give us energy security, but also energy price stability, which we haven't really had in the world for a very long time. But potentially we can have that if we make that climate transition and do it quickly.
And Tánaiste, you mentioned in your remarks there in relation to the pandemic how resilient foreign direct investment has been over the last 2 years, largely a feature of the types of sectors that we have targeted now for many years: technology, pharma, medtech, international financial services, business services. Can you talk to us a little about how important FDI is to Ireland? And you've recently launched a new trade and investment strategy. You might share with us your focus within that.
Yeah, well, it's been extraordinarily important to Ireland. At a very simple level, over 200,000 people in Ireland work in FDI companies, mainly US companies. And out of an adult population of 4 million, that's a lot of people. But there's also the spin-off, all of the small companies that benefit from contracts, the law firms, the accountancy firms, you name it. And then the skills that are transferred, both in terms of people coming into Ireland with skills, and then people who work in companies like Google then taking their skills and what they learned to set up their own companies and work in other parts of the economy. So the value is actually very hard to calculate when you think of all that, because the obvious stuff is the number of people employed, the amount of tax that is paid, and so on. But the intangibles,
the 27 billion that's invested in the economy by these companies, which we are very grateful for.
But we do very much now see it as a two-way street as well. So I'm here with Enterprise Ireland as well, which is the government agency that helps Irish companies to export and go global themselves. And we now, believe it or not, have 100,000 Americans working for Irish-owned companies here in the US. So we're the 9th biggest investor in the US. So for a country of only 5 million people to be in the top 10 investors in the US is not a small thing, and something we're proud of, and demonstrates that it's now very much a two-way street.
Thanks, Tánaiste. Maybe just in conclusion, and just to summarise, why Ireland remains attractive. Ireland has been very open to investment, open to talent and inward migration. Successive governments have had pro-enterprise policies. Are they the key ingredients going forward? Do we need more?
Yeah, I think the winning formula remains very similar. It's having the talent, both home produced and people we welcome into the country. It's the track record around being pro-enterprise, pro-business, pro-trade. It's having a competitive tax offering, both in terms of the tax rate and the R&D credit, and the global agreement on that, I think, is a positive, because it removes uncertainty around that. It is, of course, about making sure we have the right ecosystem and good public infrastructure. And it's also, I think, as well about our position in the European Union. When there's a lot of countries uncertain about their place in the world at the moment. We saw what happened with the UK and Brexit, an election in France which was closer than people might have liked. In Ireland, there's real consensus and real certainty about where we see ourselves in the world. We're very much part of the English-speaking world with a close relationship with America and Britain, but we're also at the heart of the European Union and the Eurozone and the single market. It's the common European home we helped to build. We're very secure in our position in the world, which I think is important when there are so many countries that are doubting what their role in the world is.
Thank you, Tánaiste, for sharing those thoughts. The Tánaiste and I will be back with you in a little while, but I'm going to hand back to Diane at this point. Thank you, Tánaiste.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Tánaiste and Martin, for that up-to-date view of what's going on in the Irish government and the world, and a reminder about COVID as well, right? That it was devastating, and it's so odd that economically it was so beneficial to so many governments along the way. It's just hard to kind of get your head around that. So next up, please welcome Rethink Ireland's Deirdre Mortell and Jacquelline Fuller. Deirdre and Jacqueline, come on up.
Well, Deirdre, it's great to be back together again. We were just reminiscing that the last time we were together was in 2016 in Dublin, and it was a time of many firsts for me, I will say. I had my first Guinness, and that was memorable. And but we were there because we were launching together Google, the government of the government of Ireland, and Rethink Ireland together, our very first innovation fund together. And the reason we came together is because we really believe that the problems that we all know so well, hunger, climate change, mental health, these are problems that are not going to be amenable to today's solutions only. We really need new innovation. We need organizations, nonprofits, social enterprises who are using technology in really clever ways to think about how we can really bring this change at scale. And that's what Google.org invests in. But we were so thrilled when we got to know you, and also in speaking with the government of Ireland, so committed to innovation, so committed to the use of technology. So the first time ever we came together and said, let's co-fund, let's work together, and launched our first initiatives. And it was so successful, we decided, let's do that again. So Deirdre, just hearing from your perspective, what do you think was the secret sauce to make a public-private partnership like that work?
Yeah, so, I mean, it was fantastic. 2016 We did Think Tech together.
Yes.
Looking at, okay, how can we support nonprofits that are developing innovative technologies to solve critical social issues? And nobody had ever done what we call a fund like that before. So it was phenomenal to bring together yourselves in google.org together with the Irish government to co-fund that, convened by Rethink Ireland. So those partnerships, look, at its heart, it's very simple. What makes a partnership work? Trust. We have to look into our hearts and say, can we work together or can we not? Because especially a three-way partnership, you know, trust is really important, but I think we all know, we all do partnerships here. It's also messy. It's messy. So how do we get through the messiness into the good stuff? Like what I have learned about that, and look, partnership is like, Rethink Ireland is a partnership model. We were started by the government in order to stimulate philanthropy, back social innovation, and bring together philanthropy with government funds to do that. So to get through that messiness, we've learned, let's look at what all of our strengths are. What do we uniquely bring to the table as a partner? I think, you know, in that case, it was so clear, google.org, what do you bring? Well, first of all, you brought funds, in that case, €500,000, which is very significant donation in the Irish context. But you also brought the skills and expertise of your staff as mentors. You brought deep knowledge of scale. What did the government bring? In that case, also funds, very important, but also deep knowledge of scale around tackling critical social issues. You know, if you want to scale solutions to critical social issues in Ireland, you really need to work with government. It's how our society functions. And Rethink Ireland, what do we uniquely bring? We bring those partners together, and we also know a thing or two about selecting innovations and backing them using not just money, but also those non-financial supports that you would get from a VC fund.
Yes. And it was so successful, I think surprising us all, that we decided to co-invest again. And an emphasis that you really brought to the table was on rural Ireland. So maybe speak to us about why that's so important. What do you see happening in rural areas, and how can we help support the innovation going on there?
Yeah, so we have our Rural Recovery Fund that we're doing together. And again, it's a three-way partnership. Google, the Government of Ireland, convened by Rethink Ireland. And, you know, just a little reminder, like a third of our population lives in rural areas. So we're not talking about a tiny minority here. But we also know, and every country with a strong rural population knows, that building sustainable growth and decent work is a lot easier than the cities. Spreading that around the country in terms of how can we make sure there are decent work in our towns, in our villages, and in our little parishes, so that young people don't have to leave, they can stay. How can we tackle that? And so I think we've come together to look at that and look at what are the challenges we need to deal with. We need to look at things like social isolation, we need to look at transport, but we also need to growing decent work, and things like remote work obviously are a huge contribution to that. And again, like what I would say is partnership is important. And one of the things that comes to me just thinking back over the last few years is, you know, not all of the audience here might know that the Sustainable Development Goals were co-developed by an Irish diplomat called David Donahue together with a Kenyan diplomat, and they steered it through the whole of the UN and got it done. And
Which is no small feat.
No small feat.
The UN.
No small feat. And one of those things that I love is David Donahue came to one of our events and he said to me, Deirdre, when we were developing the Sustainable Development Goals, we had 16 around things we know and love, like, you know, better health, better education, equality, and, you know, clean water and all those things. But a lot of us don't know that SDG 17 is actually about partnerships. So Rethink Ireland is actually an example of SDG 17, created by the government in order to say, how can we bring the best of those things together? And I have to say, I will never forget the day when David said to me, when we were dreaming up those SDGs and we put in SDG 17, this is what we meant. So that's a little proud moment for me that I think it's good for us all to know and be proud of that.
So what does this really look like, when it's working? Give us an example of one of the organizations that was funded and received support, volunteers from Google as well. Our employees are super passionate, especially in our Dublin office, and want to get involved. But give us an example of what one of these organizations looks like.
Yeah, sure. So let me take an example of Food Cloud. They started out with us back in 2016, 17, in the Think Tech Fund that we created together that first time round. And we backed them with about $250,000 in funding, a Google mentor, and a whole bunch of tech support. So technical elements around tech support to build their technology. And Food Cloud, if you don't know who they are, Food Cloud were formed by 2 students. And they are about using technology to move food that is close to its use-by date. So maybe it is a sandwich in a supermarket that is going to be gone by 9 o'clock tonight, or maybe it's a bag of potatoes on a farm, or maybe it's a bunch of boxes of cornflakes in a wholesaler. And there are hungry mouths around the country and communities around the country who could use that food before that sell-by date. But the problem was logistics, so using technology to solve that logistical problem. And Food Cloud started out with significant funding from us. We were so pleased with how they did and how they made that money work hard. We backed them with a further grant with the support from a bank. So they've now had just about €3 million in scale funding from us. They have doubled the tonnage that they're moving. So they've moved from 25 tons a week, even less than a year ago, to 60 tons a week of food that they are now distributing to hungry mouths around the country. And that's good food that would have gone to landfill. So we're saving carbon emissions, we're feeding people, and we're helping companies improve their sustainability goals as well. So that's just a really simple example of what can be done through partnerships like this.
And I just got an update on them from Stuart from our Dublin team that also the support, we gave some extra support so that they could help in particular with hunger around COVID. And some of that support is actually now helping with Ukrainian refugees. So it's great to see these organizations with brilliant, clever ideas who just need some help from resources and technology to scale. And then they're going to go out and pivot and do all sorts of new things. So Deirdre, what's in the future? Speaking of pivots, what do you see in the future pathway for you all as Rethink Ireland, but also more broadly, the ecosystem of philanthropy and nonprofit social enterprises?
Yeah, so we're delighted that the government actually, Minister O'Brien, just this week convened the first group to develop the new policy around philanthropy, and we'll be working very closely. I'll be working with that group. So that's very exciting. So what's the next 10 years going to look like in terms of how we can stimulate philanthropy in relation to these partnerships again? A little closer to home. Rethink Ireland is seeking new partners all the time. We've already worked twice with Google. Love to talk to some of you over the next couple of days as well. See what can we do together with you. And I think the future is bright because the key pivot I want to see Irish society make, and I think this is so possible, but with all of your help, is how can we think about philanthropy as risk capital?
Yeah. That's right.
The Tánaiste was here talking about taxpayers' money and tax. We all know as taxpayers that we don't give permission to government to take risk. We don't like it when the government experiments with our tax money and it doesn't work. We call that failure and we don't like it. Philanthropy can take risk. That is the unique quality of philanthropic money. It can experiment, it can take risk. And you know what? If that thing works out, we can come and talk to government. And again, philanthropy to look at, well, if that actually solves this problem, how can we scale it up? So I think being really thoughtful about the role philanthropy can take and starting to think about it as risk capital is the key pivot I really want to see us make in Ireland over the next 5 to 10 years.
It's kind of rare to find funders who are willing to do that risk capital, but also to move into technology, I think. And so I think as an engineering company, it's really important to us to back especially solutions that use technology to help expand scale. So it has been wonderful to partner with you, and thanks for joining us again today.
Thank you, Jacqueline. Thank you.
Thank you, Deirdre, and thank you, Jacqueline and Deirdre. That idea of risk capital and sort of rethinking philanthropy, I love that. All right, so now it is time to move on to the presentation. And to do that, I would like to invite back up to the stage Martin to give us some context on this special recognition award and what it means. Martin, it's all yours.
Thank you very much, Diane. Good morning again, everyone. For over 70 years, Ireland has been reaching out to the best companies in the world to tell them about the opportunities that locating in Ireland can provide for their businesses. We have been doing so with great success. Foreign direct investment has made an enormous contribution to the Irish economy and to Irish society. Just like Google, those that have located in Ireland have found a rich source of talent and a highly educated workforce with a unique ability to understand US and European business cultures. As you've heard earlier in my discussion with Tánaiste, Ireland remains open to investment, open to talent, and committed to pro-enterprise policies. ID Ireland considers its international investors as partners whom we work with to achieve shared goals. This partnership model has brought great prosperity to Ireland and empowered the economy in ways that few might have thought were possible when IDA was founded in 1949. As a young company, Google saw the great opportunity that existed in Ireland way back in 2003. Since then, Google's expansion in Ireland has been truly remarkable, and I have had the personal pleasure of witnessing so many moments in the company's European journey in recent years. Google has invested over 1.5 billion euro over the past 5 years and now employs over 9,000 people in Ireland. Ireland does not take any investment for granted, and we never rest on our laurels. Working in investment promotion, we are acutely aware of the competition that exists for mobile investment right across the globe. We believe that the contribution that Ireland's most important investors make should be recognised. The Special Recognition Award is our way of honouring those that really stand out in terms of the commitment and contribution. The award was established in 2020 to give a platform to recognise some of Ireland's most impactful investors. It marks outstanding achievement in investment and is a very public acknowledgement of the wonderful partnership that exists between Ireland and the chosen recipient. It also signifies Ireland's commitment to work with our partners to ensure that we remain a collaborative, open, competitive environment in which to grow your investment. On behalf of Frank Ryan, the chair of IDA, myself and colleagues at IDA, we would like to thank you for your continued partnership and congratulate you on this award. Before we make the formal presentation, I would now like to invite Tánaiste back to the stage once more, just to share his thoughts in relation to the award specifically. Tánaiste.
Thank you very much, Martin, Sundar, distinguished guests. It's a real pleasure to join you here in this beautiful campus in Sunnyvale. 5 years ago, as Taoiseach Prime Minister, I had the pleasure of visiting Silicon Valley to meet with many of Ireland's partners. Since that visit, IDA and Enterprise Ireland have continued to seek out opportunities to work with companies from the Valley as they look to expand their businesses into Europe and further afield. I'm delighted to be joined here throughout this week-long investment mission by the CEOs of IDA Ireland and Enterprise Ireland, Martin Shanahan and Leo Clancy is in the audience as well. I'm also joined by Dr. Orla Quinn, who's Secretary General of the Department of Enterprise, Trade and Employment, which is the department that I lead, and also want to acknowledge the presence of the Chairman of the IDA, Frank Ryan, who's joining us today as well. Over the course of my 5 days on the West Coast, I'm meeting some of the largest US investors and employers in Ireland, but only one company is receiving the IDA's Special Recognition Award. As Martin mentioned, recognising investors that have made outstanding contributions to Ireland is right and proper. Earlier this month, I launched the government's new trade and investment strategy, which reflects the fact that Ireland's prosperity doesn't derive from our oil, our gas, or mineral wealth, because we don't really have much of that. Rather, it derives from our two most important assets, our land, and of course our people. And it is the goods and services that we produce to a very high standard and then sell around the world that is the reason for Ireland's relative prosperity. So trade is the source of our economic growth and the source of our prosperity. And the contribution that Google has made to trade and investment in Ireland over the past 20 years has been nothing short of remarkable. Ireland and Google have grown together, and it's been a great success story. Google, as you probably know, grew in Ireland from a team of only 100 people in 2003 to over 9,000 now. And it's a story that has travelled across the world in terms of investment policy. The ability to scale up your workforce in Ireland in such a short period is a case study that has helped the IDA to win thousands more jobs in the meantime. Your major investment and growth came at a time when Ireland's economy was not as strong as it is today. In the investment world, the term clustering is used to describe the phenomenon of companies centering on one location and ecosystems developing as a result. In Google's case, you can lay claim to being a fundamental part of what we now refer to as the Silicon Docks, a recognised technology cluster in Dublin city centre. What's also worth noting is the skill sets that you've attracted and fostered in Ireland throughout that time. Google's location in Dublin has acted as a magnet for talent in Europe. And I also want to particularly recognise your commitment to Ireland's SME sector, which benefits from Google's presence in so many different ways. Today, that technology hub consists of thousands of roles in startups, fintech, health tech, mobility tech, cybersecurity, social media, and many more areas. As you know, Ireland is also home to thriving pharmaceutical companies, medical technology, aviation, financial services, and we have a very large food and beverage sector as well. We have a large and recovering tourism sector and a growing public sector. And I think overall, it's a good mix of industries and technologies and testimony that Ireland continues to be considered an excellent destination for those who are seeking to invest. So on behalf of the Irish government, and indeed on behalf of the Irish people, I want to thank Google for its continued confidence in Ireland. I want to thank Sundar in particular for his continued leadership and stewardship. And I also want to acknowledge and thank the many people in Google's wider team, those of you who are Irish and of course those of you who are from all the other parts of the world. You're very much valued members of the investment community, and we consider you to be part of the Irish community and close friends. So thank you again for hosting us, and over again to Martin.
Thank you, Tánaiste, for those remarks. So at this stage, I would like to invite Sundar Pichai to the stage to receive the award.
There you go.
Oh, be careful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think we're over here.
All right.
We'll go next.
And a big congratulations to Google on this wonderful honor. Congratulations. Yep. We'd like to invite up IDA Chairman Frank Ryan, Lorraine Toohill, Chief Marketing Officer at Google, and Jessica McCarthy, Head of Engineering, Google Ireland, to join us for a celebratory photo, which we have to do for this event.
I was a bit worried I would drop it.
Beautiful. Thank you very much. We'll move over here.
All right, thank you. Thank you again. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
You're going to introduce me.
I get it all over again. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you again. All right, thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right.
So at this point, we'd like to invite Sundar to make a few remarks. Thank you, Sundar.
Right. Thank you. Thank you, Tánaiste, Martin, senior government officials, guests from IDA, and Enterprise Ireland. It's an honor to accept this award and to welcome you all to our campus here in California. Welcome also to the many former and current Irish Googlers here today, including our Chief Marketing Officer, Lorraine Tuhill. I got to spend some time at a Dublin pub with with Lorraine's dad, during my last visit to Ireland. I came away with a much deeper appreciation of Gaelic football and hurling, and some really great memories. I also happen to be a Messi fan, and he's a Ronaldo fan, so that was a bit difficult to work through. I can't wait to return soon. Google and Ireland have a proud history together. We opened our first office in Dublin in 2003 with just 5 employees. We came to Ireland 4 years after Google was announced, and with the mission to organize the world's information and make it universally accessible and useful. It's a fundamentally optimistic mission, driven by our belief in the power of technology to improve people's lives. In Ireland, we saw a country that echoed our optimism. The Tánaiste once spoke about Ireland being a new country, but an ancient people. We feel a deep responsibility to preserve and share knowledge built up over generations, to nurture Irish culture and help everyone in Ireland access the benefits that technology creates. Even in 2003, the Irish government recognized the potential for the internet to increase opportunity. And the IDA especially had a key role in creating an environment where innovation could thrive. We deeply appreciate IDA's support of Google and our continued strong partnership. Over the past 2 decades, Google has benefited from the extraordinary depth of Irish tech talent. Engineering breakthroughs made in Ireland have advanced Google AI and strengthened security. Partnerships with institutions like Trinity College have helped us think deeply about technology and society. And today, Ireland is home to 9,000 of our employees, including nearly 1,000 engineers supporting Google's global operations. And we are proud to help contribute to the strong tech ecosystem that exists in Ireland today. This presence anchors our partnerships with the government to help address some of the country's most pressing challenges. During the pandemic, we worked together to share health information people could trust, provide tools to track the impact of COVID, and help small businesses, teachers, and people learn new digital skills. Right now, our Google Safety Engineering Center team in Dublin is working to support European governments as they fight misinformation related to the war in Ukraine. I saw how much these efforts meant on my recent visit to Poland, where Google is supporting refugees and nonprofits. I want to thank you, Tánaiste, for all that Ireland is doing in solidarity with the Ukrainian people. It's another example of the meaningful ways that we continue to work together, and there's much more to come. Over the past 5 years, Google has invested more than 1.5 billion euros in Dublin and across the country. We plan to keep investing, including at the Boland's Mill sites, where we are humbled to be custodians of an important place in Irish history. Earlier today, we signed a new agreement with Enterprise Ireland to help more Irish small businesses. And we established a new Google.org fund to support Irish NGOs and communities. At home in Europe and beyond, we see Ireland continuing to play a distinct role in shaping the internet's future. We want to be a close and trusted partner and to work with you in the same spirit of optimism, to develop Irish talent, advance Irish innovation, and make technology part of a strong future for every Irish community. Thank you so much again for this honor. Thank you.
Sundar, thank you so much, and thank you to Google for making this happen for Ireland and helping out. All right, so this is kind of a clue of what's coming up next. I want to welcome back Tolü McKay. Hello, Tolü. Nice to see you. She's going to perform her version of the Saw Doctors classic in 17. I'll hand it over to you, Tolü.
Thank you. Let's go.
when I left the Christian Brothers school. So I waved it goodbye with a wistful smile as I left the girls of June. And sometimes when I'm reminiscing, I see the prefabs and my old friends, and I know that they'll be changed or gone by the time I get home again. And I wish I was on the N17. Yes, I wish I was on the N17. Traveling with just my thoughts and dreams. Well, the old fella left me to Shanahan. Was the last time I traveled that road. And as we turned left at Claregalway, I could feel a lump in my throat as I pictured the thousands of times that I traveled that well-worn track. And I know that things will be different if I ever decide to go back. And I wish I was on the N17. Yes, I wish I was on the N17. Traveling with just my thoughts and dreams. Now as I tumble down highways or on filthy overcrowded trains, there's no one to talk to in transit, so I sit there and daydream in vain. Behind all these muddled up problems of living on a foreign soil, I can still see the twists and turns on the road, from the square to the town of the tribe. And I wish I was on the N17. Yes, I wish I was on the N17. Traveling with just my thoughts and dreams. Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Well, that was absolutely beautiful. Thank you, Tolü. Thank you again, and to the whole band. Incredible. All right, well, we sure packed a lot into an hour, I would say, and we learned a lot. Thank you to all of this morning's participants for the rich and engaging contributions you gave to us today. And lastly, a big thank you to our guests here today, everyone here today and everyone watching, and to Google. Thank you to Google for hosting us for this wonderful recognition as well. So thank you there. I'm honored to be here. Have a lovely day. And to play us out, we've collected some messages from Ireland. So enjoy.
Ireland is home to a thriving and inspiring tech community, recognized the world over for its talent, innovation and culture. Google has been at the heart of that and a key part of Ireland's FDI success. An early inhabitant of Dublin's Silicon Docks, Google blazed a trail for other companies and startups, including through its valuable collaborations with Irish universities and the startup scene here. Indeed, Google has played a very important part in making Ireland the tech capital of Europe. It is my pleasure to congratulate Sundar Pichai and Google on this special recognition award, a testament to the remarkable contribution Google has made to Ireland in the 19 years it has been here. Congratulations, Sundar.
Congratulations, Google. Like attracts like, and you paved the way for many more enterprises who have benefited from being part of an internationally recognised tech hub here in Ireland.
Being one of the very early Googlers in Ireland gave me a lifelong interest in working with early stage startups. It also showed me the importance of intangibles like building relationships with people, something that Ireland excels at. Congratulations, Google.
Ireland has a highly educated and creative workforce, and that is very attractive to overseas investors. By investing in programs here at Trinity, Google is helping the next generation of graduates to achieve even more. Well done on your award.
Being a Google.org Impact Challenge recipient has made a huge difference to the work that we do promoting equality and protecting LGBTQ youth online and offline. Thank you, Google, and congratulations.
As head of Google Ireland and back in my hometown, I'm immensely proud of what Google and Ireland have achieved together in the last 2 decades. It's an honour to be involved in a partnership that, many years ago, sowed the seeds of a world-leading tech industry hub, and that today contributes so much to our economy, our international reputation, and our day-to-day lives in Ireland.